What is going on, everybody? I'm back with another Netflix slider tutorial, but this time we're gonna take it one step further. In my first ever tutorial on YouTube, I created a Netflix looking like slider purely using CSS. This time I wanted to take this a step further and use a JavaScript library called SwiperJS. The slider that I created wasn't bad, considering it was fully created with CSS, but I figured that there is a better way of doing it, and this is what I'm going to show you today. We are not going to be writing any JavaScript except changing a few options, and all the CSS that we'll be writing will be fairly simple, but I just wanted to mention that I will be using SCSS, which is a CSS preprocessor, and it just makes things a little bit more organized and easy to work with. But feel free to follow along and do your own CSS if you like to. So in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a Netflix looking slider that is easy to modify, easy to configure, and it works with touch, which can be very useful. So before we begin, if I can ask everybody to please subscribe to my channel by clicking the red button below. I only started my channel a few months ago, but I've already generated tons of content that you probably find interesting if you're looking at this one. So go to my channel, have a look around, and if you like what you see, please subscribe, because I will be uploading more and more tutorials just like this. And last thing, before we start, all the code that I will be doing today will be uploaded on my blog, which I will post in the description below. So if you wanted to copy some of the code and use it for your own project, feel free to do. And enough talking, let's start coding. Okay, this is third time lucky. In this video I will be using SwiperJS, which is basically a very modern touch slider that you can use on pretty much anything such as mobile apps. It doesn't matter whether it's hybrid or native, you can use on websites. And the great thing about SwiperJS is that it's full of options, and there is loads of choice that you can have while you're building your slider. And yeah, it's really powerful basically. And one of the reasons that I really like it is because you can use touch on it. But anyways, let's begin. The first thing we need to do here is go and download the latest version of the JavaScript, and for this one I will download the version 5.2.1. just download the zip file. I've already done that, but basically just click on here, and let's go back now and look at the demos. If we scroll down, the demo that we can use, that we'll be using today, it's called multiple slides per view. So as you can see, this is already kind of looking like a Netflix scroller, so I think this would be the perfect example. So if you go to source code, it will take us to GitHub, and let's basically copy this code, and then we'll just start from here. I will explain everything bit by bit. So I've already created a folder. I've downloaded the file that I need, the SwiperJS files, and inside here, inside the zip file, you will find a folder called package. So make sure you extract this package folder in your project folder. So in my case it's here, and then I've got my index file, my images, and the CSS. For the CSS, I'm going to use SCSS. For the images, I've just downloaded a few images from Netflix. So I'm going to go ahead and open this in Visual Studio Code, and I will go ahead and paste the HTML that we just copied. Now the first thing you're going to see on top is, let's change the title to Netflix 1.1. and we have a viewport, and then the first important thing that you're going to see here is the link to the style sheet to packages CSS Swiper. Is basically what we just extracted out from this zip file. So we definitely need this, but I want to move the demo styles into the style sheet that I have created, which is the styles.css, SCSS, sorry. So I'm going to copy and paste it here, so it's a little bit more organized. And I'm going to go back and just remove this style. And also, of course, we're going to have to When I'm gonna be using the extension called life size compiler. So basically every time I compile my SCSS, it's gonna compile it to this stars.css file, and this is the file that I actually want to link. So let's do this. So link CSS, and the CSS that we want to link is under CSS styles.css. And also make sure to install the extension that you watch SCSS, so it watches through any changes that we do here. So if I save this, it will overwrite the changes in here. Okay. So let's close the CSS, go back to index. So far so good. Another thing that I want to mention is that I will be using a live server. So if I right click on the index.html and open with a live server, that should open a live server URL for me, which looks like this. So as you can see, we've already got the demo working here, the styles are coming through, and everything seems great. Let's go back. The good thing about the live server is that every time I save, it's just gonna reload the page for me, so I don't have to refresh every time. Anyways, you probably already know that. And if we go down, this is basically the container that is holding all the slides. As you can see, slide 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then this is the pagination. This is the JavaScript link to SwiperJS, which is a minified version as well. So without this, the slider won't work. We definitely need the packages folder and this. And then the last bit is the JavaScript, where we will be adding a few settings, but it's nothing major. We'll be just adding and changing a few things around. So the first thing we probably want to do is to make things a little bit organized. I'm gonna wrap everything in here with a div of class Netflix container. Or let's just call it Netflix. And then inside this Netflix div, everything will have the and basically we'll have the slider inside this div. But what this is gonna do is this div, you know, when you create divs, they usually set to block element. So if I go back, you will see that the slider has actually shrunk down, and this is because the div has a property of a block element, and I will show you right now. So if I was to inspect the div with class Netflix, you will see that the div is displayed as block, and this is why it shrunk down, and this is what we actually want. And now the next bit I want to do is actually include some images. So what I'm going to do is remove all these divs, and I'm just going to use one to add an image and then duplicate that. So I've added a few images in my folder, and they're just named 1 to 10. So let's add the first image, and to do this we just do image source, and img is the folder, and then image1. Of course, you might want to add alt tags for accessibility, usability, and so on. So it will probably say the movie name or whatever. So I'm just gonna put movie title for now, because I'm not really sure which image that is, which movie that is. Okay, so now I need 10 of them, and to do this in Visual Studio Code, I will show you a very simple shortcut. If you do Alt, Shift, and down, this will duplicate the div and everything inside, of course. So I'm just gonna duplicate this 8 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I hope this is 10 altogether. So, and then I'm gonna change the source of the image to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And if you save this and go back to the browser, you will see that we are getting the images that I've downloaded from Netflix. Now, the next bit I want to do is I want to make sure that we have few movies. I want to change the number of the movies displayed on the first slide or the first screen, let's call it that way. And to do this, if we go back to the index.html file and scroll down, you will see slides per view. So we can change this to whatever number you like. Let's say I want 6 and I want the space between it to be 10. Okay. So we'll see 6 of those elements, but the space between doesn't work. This is because the images are not yet responsive. And to do that, we have to go to styles, and if we want to be if we want it to be specific, we can just make the images responsive for the Netflix slider. And to do this, we can do Netflix, and all the images in the Netflix slider, I want them to be max width of 100%, and the height needs to be set to auto. If I save this and go back, you will see that all the images are now fit in the boxes, and there is 10 pixels gap. I will show you if I go back to the index.html and change the space between to be something drastic, maybe like 40, that's pixels by the way, and go back, you will see that the gap between them is much larger. Now, one thing that I don't like about this slider is this navigation at the bottom. I'm not a big fan, but if you like to keep it and if you like to push it down a little bit so it looks slightly better, if you inspect it, you will see that the actual div, it's called Swiper pagination, and in fact I can show you here. This is the div that you would probably want to just move, just change the bottom property a little bit, maybe like this, but also we need to overflow. We need to do the overflow or add a little bit of padding. So mess around with that if you like, but I don't really like it, so I'm just gonna take it off. Instead, just like Netflix, I want to add the left and right arrows. And to do this, what you can do is go back to the SwiperJS website, click on API, navigate to, on the left side there is components, and then the components there is navigation. If you click on that, you will see that navigation is type of object and and basically you can just add this to anywhere in here, pretty much anywhere in here. We can in fact remove the pagination because we don't want that, or I don't want that. You can keep if you like, and paste the navigation instead. But of course, as I said, you can have both. Let me tidy this up a little bit. So now that I've done this, and save it, we won't yet see the arrows, and this is because we actually need to create the divs. And where the pagination was here, we actually need to create the divs there. And let's change this to add arrows. Okay. So the first arrow is going to have the div class of swiper button next, and make sure you close the div. And the second div will have the class of swiper button prev, and make sure you close the div. Save this, go back, and you will see that we have a blue arrow here and a very opaque blue arrow here, and this is because obviously you can't go left, but you can go right, and once you go right, then this one lights up as well, so it tells you that you can go left. Now the next bit that I want to sort out is, first of all, let me change this to 10 so it looks a little bit better. And the second thing that I want to sort out is the arrows navigation. Basically, at the moment, every time we click the arrows, the slides actually move by one, and we can change this. You can set a specific number. Maybe you want, when you click the the arrow, the slider to move by 2 or 3 or 4. And to change this, we can literally go in here and add another option. And again, this is from the API, and it's called slides per group. And let's add 4, for example. Save this, and now if I click right, it should scroll by 4. As you can see, the scroll is much higher now. And of course I can set it to 2, so you can see again. So it's now scrolling by 2, and so on. So that's perfect so far. The next bit I want to focus on, we are actually now done with the HTML. We don't have to touch anything else. And the next thing we need to focus on is the CSS. Actually, first of all, let me just add the let's add a fake logo of Netflix just to make it more real, to make it look cool. So I'm just gonna add H1 with the title of Netflix, and inside here I can add H2 just to make it look similar to Netflix, and I will just add something like popular on Netflix. Okay, popular Netflix. Let me save this, go back, everything works, and let me start. Now we are actually done with this. Let me go to the CSS and do some styling. So the first thing I can do, the actual H1 is outside, but we're not going to bother with that. I'm just going to style it here. I want to change the background color of the actual website first to black, and I want to reverse the text color to be white. And if I go back down to the H1 now, I can do, let's say, text align center, and maybe color just set to red. I believe this would do the job. And I think let's have a look at this. Okay, this is looking good. I'm not gonna change the font or anything like that. Now the next bit, the popular on Netflix, it's fine. Of course you might want to add some padding or whatever, but I'm not gonna bother with this at the moment. The next bit that I want to focus on is the arrows. The arrows are fairly dark and you might want to change this. So an easy way that I found is to inspect the arrows, and I'm sure that there is other ways, but you can either use the class in here to change it, to overwrite. Let's try this first. In fact, I don't think I've tried that yet. So an easy way is actually to change this root color. I'm sure that there is another way, but if I was to put root and this variable, excuse me, I think, okay, so if I was to put root and this variable, and we can probably change it from here. I don't know whether this is the right way of doing it, but it's, let's have a look. And I think actually the root needs to be outside here. Okay, and all of this needs to be actually like this. Oh, messed it up now. I don't know. To tidy things up. Okay, so let's save. And now that I've added the root and this variable and I've set it to white, you will see that the arrows are now white, and of course you can change them to whatever you like. Also, you might want to have a look at the API. There might be an easier way of doing the colors. I'm not too sure about this, but let's continue. Now the next bit that we might want to do is the hover effect. The hover effect will be obviously set on each individual swiper slide. So let's copy the class and add it in here. And basically what I can do is on each swiper slide, I can add a transition first of all of 250 milliseconds all, and then inside here I can add a hover effect just like this, Maybe we can do transform, scale to 1.2. Let's see if this works first of all. And as you can see, the scale works well, but we actually need to make some space for the image to expand. To do this, we can add to the swiper wrapper, we can maybe add a little bit of padding. So in here we can do swiper wrapper padding, and we can do 20 pixels top and bottom and 0 pixels left and right. So now if I hover over, you will see that the images are actually fully showing and zooming in, scaling in. But the second problem that you might see is that the images are actually overlapping, and to fix this, you probably just want to do z-index to 1 on the hover. And if you go back, you will see that they are now working well. Also, the hover might not be the best option for touch, but you have to try that out and see how it works. But this seems to be okay. And another thing that you might notice is that if I hover over on the first image, some of it gets cut out. I don't think it's a big deal, but there is an easy way of fixing this. And to fix this for the first image, we can actually just target the hover on the first image. So what I can do is first child, and then I can do hover. And in here, maybe we can do margin of 0 and 40 pixels. So let's see if this works first, and then I'll explain. This kind of works. Maybe it needs to be slightly less, but as you can see, the image, let's put it to 30 just for this example. Okay, this works a little bit better with 30 pixels, but as you can see, the image now doesn't go to the left, it just goes to the right and pushes the rest of the images, and those images just zoom in. The effect is not exactly the same as Netflix, but I think to do the Netflix one, we'll have to write a lot of JavaScript, which I don't think many people want to do, and I think this looks pretty decent anyway. Now, because we have a set number of thumbnails in here, we'll probably have to target this one as well and do the same, and we probably have to target the last one as well and do the same. So I'm just going to show you the last one just like this. Instead of first child, we can do last child, and instead of 30 pixels, of course, this will be negative 30 pixels. And if you go back, you will see that Afterlife is now zooming in nicely. And of course, if you want to target, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you want to target the 6th element, then you have to do nth and the child number. I believe it was nth child, I think. So nth child, maybe number 6, and then on hover, then we can do, let's say, margin minus 30 pixels. Let's have a look whether this works. And as you can see, this works well. And so we have on this, these are zooming in nicely, and so on. And last but not least, you probably want multiple rows of these movies, and you're probably wondering if you press this button whether the next row will break, but it actually won't. So what we can do, just to show you, we can either copy the whole Netflix thing, or we can just copy the container. But let's copy the whole Netflix row in this case, and just paste one in here. And maybe for the second one, we can say, I don't know, let's say new movies. New movies, and obviously just to make them look slightly different. I don't know. You get the point. I just want them to look slightly different. Okay. So if I was to click on this one, it won't affect anything below, and if I was to click on this one, it won't affect anything above, and so on. So we can basically add more and more, and of course you might want to add some padding around because the text is way too close to the edge. But that's pretty much everything. I hope you like this tutorial. As always, please subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. It just takes a second to do. I am trying to grow this YouTube channel. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, and if you like to see videos just like this, or if you have any ideas, please let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching, and as always,